Grumpy Gits are proudly partnered with Naidex, Europe's largest disability conference.
And coming up on today's show, we have our usual ridiculous questions and what happens next. We talk about the Ukraine-Russia Olympic situation, how to get fired from the Apprentice without dropping a task. We'll absolutely talk about that. And we also talk to Friendly Shoes and Able Magazine. All this coming up on a fun-packed new episode of The Grumpy Gits. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of The Grumpy Gits, the podcast like most of us right now are asking the question, war, yeah, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. More of that later. And as always, I am joined by three fabulous friends and glorious mammals. Coming up first, as always, he's tired in his flat in Spain and wants to go to bed. Oh, how my heart is fucking bleeding. How are you doing, Simon Sansome?
I'm in my flat in Spain and I want to go to bed. I'm an hour ahead here. So we recorded this like 9 o'clock at night. So I'm like half asleep.
Oh, it's 9 o'clock bedtime. That's
Alexa, how much sympathy do I have? You have full sympathy for Simon Sansome. Duncan Casburn, how are you, good sir?
I'm very well. Yeah, the usual crap going on. My daughter's got she had a positive COVID test from school, so we got her home for a week. I've tested her, and she's negative, but still, we've got to keep her home for a week, so that's life.
And outside of that, bought any guitars, heard any banging music, punched any kangaroos? I've been watching Aussie Man Review, so my promoter for Australia is messed up right now.
I hate that I can't punch kangaroos in the UK. That's a real drawback, I have to say. But I will say, and I'll plug this, the Fallen State, one of my favourite bands, and Chris and I have interviewed them on a few occasions in the past, have a new album coming out in a few weeks, and it's unbelievable, the stuff they've released so far. So, plug for them. Fantastic stuff.
Fantastic. And finally, the greatest editor in the world. I get it dead now, isn't it? Because he doesn't do the editing. Chris Leasmith, how are you, my friend?
Why don't I get that? Why don't I get the greatest editor in the world now?
Since the last episode, weight loss is going good. It's going very well.
What are we down to? What's the magic number?
To be honest, mate, I haven't weighed myself. I haven't really focused on it. So I'm sure it's gone down a bit more because I have been working out and eating. But it didn't start off great since the last episode because we had that half term and it's stressful with the kids. And yeah, it was a pain in the arse. But now they've gone back. So things are getting back to normal.
Don't get too skinny because we don't want you looking like Peter Crouch.
I'm going to hit that sort of 16 and a half, 17 stone mark. I don't want to say too much because if I don't achieve it, then I'm going to look like a right bitch. But no, 16 and a half, 17, I'll be happy with. Okay.
Dude, you're hanging out with Simon and myself. You're going to look skinny regardless.
It's I want to widen the gap. That's the thing.
My leg weighs the same as Adam.
Simon Sampson and his 9 stone 10 leg. Happy days.
I don't know how this happens because I've never seen a man like Adam eat so much in a restaurant. He eats more than me and Kate, my wife, put together. He costs me a fortune because I say, go on, I'll treat you for a meal. And next thing I know, I've got a £60 bill.
I love Adam's style. Yeah, I'll have the lobster. Oh, you're paying, Simon? No worries. Lobster and caviar, please.
I'll make that 2 lobsters. No. Anyway, we've gone on far too much about my appetite and my cracking physique and my passion for lobster. Let's get into some ridiculous questionage. Chris Leasmith, what have you got for us?
I've got another cracking bunch of questions this week, including another that may cause arguments. So, yeah, we'll look out for this one. So, first question is, what's the simplest thing that gives you satisfaction? I will give an example. For me, it's something like a strong bin liner that I can take out and it doesn't rip to bits.
You need to get out more.
Something simple. I'm not saying it's like the most satisfactory thing that I've ever gone through, but it's simple. And if you've ever taken a bin liner out of the bin and it tears, then you kind of get annoyed. So along those lines, let's start with Simon this week.
Oh, it's got to be a back scratcher. Yeah, I mean, I can't reach my back. So I for most people know I've got spinal damage. So I've got less movement than most people. Okay. And it's just like, you're like, oh, I just can't reach it. I can't move. And like, oh yeah, absolutely. And for a person who sits down for 99% of the day as well, you get a sweaty back and stuff. It needs to be washed and, good back scratch. Yeah. Get the claws out and just start scratching away. Oh, it's like heaven.
I kind of want one. No, you said about that.
I'll send you one in the post.
Yeah.
From Spain.
Yeah.
It'll be there in 3 weeks.
Okay, let's go with Duncan next.
This is a segue to my next topic, because watching The Apprentice, nothing makes me feel as talented as watching The Apprentice. Just watching them fuck everything up that they do makes me feel fantastic.
Right there with you, Duncan. We've all got that one friend that we call when we want to feel smarter.
Yes, exactly that.
I've got one. His name's Pete. The last time I called him, I was like, what are you doing? And he was literally making a list of the smartest animals on the planet. And he's like, my top 3 are dolphin, pig, and dog. And I was like, oh, really? I think humans are the smartest animal on Earth. And his exact response was, what makes you say that? I'm like, what the fuck are we going to debate this?
Let's go to Adam next.
Shortbread.
Oh, what? Sorry?
Shortbread.
Shortbread.
Shortbread's amazing. Shortbread, no matter how bad a mood I'm in, shortbread will cheer me up.
Wow, okay.
I'm not with you. Can't do it.
It's just kind of boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why not just add some sugar to butter and go for that? It's the same thing.
That sounds amazing. I want that.
Okay, let's move on to question 2. What fictional robot is your favourite and why? Let's start with Duncan this time.
Marvin the Paranoid Android. Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You can't go wrong.
Yeah. I'm so depressed.
Statement in the books where it says, as much as a person with it, or an android with a completely inanimate face could look condescending, Marvin managed it. I love that. That's just epic to me.
That's a great answer. Let's move on to Adam next.
I don't want to be a loser and pick low-hanging fruit and be like, oh, I like the Terminator or RoboCop because they're badass and everyone knows who they are. I'm going to go Kit from Knight Rider.
Oh!
That's a good one.
I know. Someone at some point in the history of time had to give a shit about David Hasselhoff, and I'm glad it was Kit.
Okay, let's have the same answer from Simon.
What's the Tony Stark's computer? What's his name?
Well, it depends which one, because you got
Jarvis. Yeah, Jarvis. Yeah. Because he's just so British. I mean, I know it's voiced by Paul Bettany, but he's just so polite. And then, if he wants people at the house, he just literally throws them out or stops them accessing stuff. So he controls the whole place. And I just think, but he does it with courtesy. And I think that's very polite.
I think he does it with courtesy, but he's got that hint of sarcasm that drops in there as well. Like he puts Tony Stark down so many times, just subtly, kind of a passive aggressive kind of, you're.
Did you say sarcasm?
Sarcasm. That's a great term.
No, did you say that? I thought I did you?
I think that has to be.
I thought that's very clever. I was going to say, well done, Duncan.
No, I'll take credit for that. Sure.
We do know that he is programmed by Tony to be that way. So, okay, let's move on to question 3. From 1 to 4, 1 being most intelligent, what would you put yourself on the list of the Grumpy Gits? Let's start with Adam.
Number 1 or move on? Number 1. Why? Like, Duncan started laughing before I'd given my answer.
I was laughing at the question.
I'm just curious who's going to say number 4.
You know what? I'm number 4. Who else would put themselves through this?
It's not a list set in stone. I'm just wondering. A test of vanity.
I reckon I'm up there. I reckon I'm good.
You're good. What?
Yeah,
as in the smartest out of all 4 of us.
I'd say so. If we got all of your wives to pick one of us for their pole quiz team, I reckon they'd all pick me.
Okay. Simon, where do you think you are on the list?
Well, I think it depends on where you measure intelligence.
In general.
But there's no such thing as general intelligence.
Well, there is.
It's
called general intelligence. I'm putting you at number 4. It's all right. You've got the 4 spot for that. Duncan, you've moved up to 3, all right?
I mean, where do you measure the intelligence? Because that's, experience or intelligence or education or intelligence.
Street smarts.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say we are measuring it on what Adam has measured his on. Where would you put yourself?
Number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm smarter than Adam.
You're saying you're smarter than Adam.
Yeah.
And Adam, you say you're smarter than Simon, yeah?
I reckon if you Google Adam Pearson Celebrity Mastermind, that'll also tell you. I'm smarter.
You little shit.
You
know you won it because of me.
Don't watch Eggheads. No. Watch Celebrity Mastermind.
So I think question 3's done its job. And that's the end of the stupid questions.
Well, I know I'm going to regret doing this. Someone's going to get offended. I bet it's Chris. Who do you think is the smartest out of the Grumpy Gits? Put it below in the comments or feel free to tweet us at GrumpDad or some bullshit on Twitter. Let's put this to bed once and for all. Who is the smartest of the Grumpy Gits? If you don't see me, that's ableism.
That's wrong. That's criminal.
Is it ageism if they don't vote for Duncan because he's the oldest out of us? Or
oh, fuck you.
What? I'm just using the same tactic.
It's ballism. If you don't
mobilism. So I can't walk.
Is it ableism, boardism, mobilism, or whatever the fuck Chris is-ism? You decide.
I'm going to make the dictionary. Oh, what the fuck is Chrisism? In the dictionary. I want a picture of Chris right next to
Well, now that we've all had that argument, let's move on to something a bit more calm. Should Russia be in the Paralympics, the Winter Paralympic Games? Simon.
Absolutely no, under no circumstances whatsoever, because the Russians have just invaded another country. And they're getting sanctioned for it. And, you got Roman Abramovich selling Chelsea faster than he can sail his ship out the marina. And, unfortunately, I know it's not their fault, okay? However, they are representing a country that has broken international law and invaded a sovereign country. And you can't do that and then go, oh, look at my gymnastics, aren't they fantastic?
Are they representing Russia? I thought they were flying under the Olympic flag rather than the Russian flag. Ever since the whole, you will like the drugs too much thing kicked off.
Yeah, that doesn't work because obviously they're still Russian. Everyone knows they are Russian. They are under the Olympic flag for taking drugs, or not them specifically taking drugs. The whole Russian corporation, whatever happened to them taking drugs and having a drug schedule, 5 days a week. but everyone knows they are there representing Russia, whether it's under the Olympic flag or not. For me, they shouldn't be there at all. They should be excluded. Every football team, every rugby team, every sporting stadium, every music artist has cancelled everything to do with Russia. And I think the Olympic Committee has given in to the pressures of Russia and said, yeah, you just carry on.
I don't know. See, I slightly disagree, because if these people actually turn around and said, look, I don't agree with what Putin's doing, I thoroughly against it, I am with the Ukrainians and they're Russian, or they're the Russian gymnasts, or Eurovision as well, because they've been let into there. Now, if they were saying that and they didn't agree, they're getting penalised just because of where they were born. I think that's kind of wrong, isn't it? If they're denouncing, if they were saying, right, Putin's the greatest, I believe that we should be getting Ukraine, I think every right to say, you know what, you're done. But if they're denouncing it...
But it's not that. They are there representing their country. They may not be under the Russian flag, but the only reason they are in the Olympics is because they went through the Russian training scheme of being an athlete supported by Russian money, like our athletes here are supported by the National Lottery from the British money from the British public. Yeah, they are getting Russian money to perform in a professional competition.
Yeah, but if they're like, I'm with Chris on this. There's the element there of, regardless of where their money's come from in the past, if they're against what's happening now, like they're going in self-representing almost. Isn't what the Olympic Committee have said is you're going in under your self-represent. You're not representing Russia. You're representing yourself.
Yeah, I think it's quite dangerous to turn around, because if we took out that they were Russian and say they were of African descent, we'd be falling along the realms of racism here, because it's where someone was born. You're not allowed here. It's kind of, I can't get away from that thought in my head.
Yeah, it's not. It's Russian sanctions. That's what it is. Everyone is the whole global community has put sanctions on Russia. Today it was announced that the ruble is worth like 1 cent to the American dollar.
Yes, 40% down. History. Apparently, 40% down, and the markets are crashing. But it's what people said is that they're against the Russian government, not the Russian people. That was the statement that they made.
Can I chime in here? Because something that I know a guy who works in the missionary field, and he's talking to missionaries who are in Russia and stuff like that. And he said overwhelmingly, the Russians themselves, the public of Russia, are totally against what's happening. They don't support Putin. They're scared because they're under so many, it's Big Brother over there. Everything you say is recorded and whatever else. And, they can't say what they want to say almost. But the overwhelming response, they're totally against. Yeah. Putin's the one making this decision, not the Russian people. And if they're being penalised for their hard work until now, simply because they're associated with the country, is that a right thing or wrong thing? It's to bring that into the disabled sort of community sort of thing, if we want to look at it that way. Is it because a country's been responsible for ableism? Does that mean a disabled person shouldn't be able to represent themselves in that situation?
Okay, here's a scenario. If we invaded France, do you think we should go off and parade in the Olympics?
Well, it depends if the Olympians were there fighting and trying to take over France, or the Olympians, the British or English or whatever it is, turned around and said, I believe what we're doing, we are going to invade France and we shouldn't be doing it.
Just to give you an idea, there was a ballet company who was supposed to be on tour around the UK, and it's obviously a Russian ballet company, and they've cancelled all tours because they were expected to be booed. They were expected to, obviously, the backlash that was going to come with it. And for their own safety, they've done that as well. Okay. And you can't pick and choose which athletes are going to represent. Obviously, they are Russian athletes at the end of the day. And all Russian entertainment, all Russian football teams have been barred from international competitions. It's not just these athletes, it's every sporting event, every entertainment event has been barred across Europe and the rest of the world. But the Olympic Committee has said these Russian athletes can go into the Paralympics.
Where do you stop, though? Because it's a case of we want to make sure we're punishing the right people, but we also don't want to. We can't let this whole thing slide anymore. Russia has been problematic, and Putin's been problematic ever since he was inaugurated back in the year 2000. So at some point, we've got to do something. And I think this dramatic reaction of sanctioning of an entire country is a direct result of several smaller, unchecked transgressions occurring that we've now been left with no choice but to take an extreme approach. So I agree with Simon that it is the right thing to do to sanction a country. And whilst the collateral damage is tragic and unfortunate, and I have no doubt the Russian people are completely on the side of Ukraine and of what we used to call justice in our society, things need to start happening and Putin needs squeezing.
I think the Russian people are almost getting put between a rock and a hard place, though, because we're putting these sanctions in place. We are, in essence, punishing Russia as a nation. That's innocence and Putin. It's almost putting the Russian people in a rock and a hard place.
I want to draw this back to the person on the street, the person who's just happens to be Russian. I was reading a very interesting article on BBC News this morning, which is actually talking about the Russian people who actually aren't aware even that this invasion's taken place because of the
propaganda
way Putin, restricts social media and all that kind of stuff. They don't even know this is taking place. Mm. You're a average, hardworking Russian person who is supporting their family, and suddenly you're dealing with all of this pressure that's coming in because of sanctions. And it's a complex issue, and I'm not trying to pretend it's not. How do you deal with this stuff? But I feel for that person on the street who is just an average person trying to do their best for their family, trying to do the best for themselves, trying to do the best for their community even, who aren't aware this is going on because it's been restricted. And suddenly they're struggling to feed their family. They're struggling to survive in this environment. And I feel for that person. And I don't know where the line stands, because it's such a complex issue when you get into the actual humanity of what's going on. And that's in Ukraine, that's in Russia.
Yeah.
Putin is the problem, not Russian people.
The people who get left behind in Russia are people with disabilities. They're usually the first to fall because obviously they can't get out, they can't get food, they can't protect themselves. It's minus 20 degrees pretty much all year round. So it's cold. So, they've got restrictions that way. And, they can't pay the gas and electricity because the ruble's not worth anything. So it's usually the disabled community who are hit the hardest. And there's going to be a huge humanitarian crisis in the disabled community in Russia because of this.
I think it's going to be a scary, scary time to be disabled in this country, as well as Russia, because the cost of living if you're disabled is already higher, and this is only going to compound that. We're in for a rough couple of years after this,
and beyond, I think,
and certainly and beyond.
Yeah,
the cost that the pandemic is going to. If you thought the pandemic was bad, Brexit's going to hit us twice as hard as a pandemic, and then Russia's going to be twice as bad as Brexit. Anyway, let's try and lift the mood a little bit and go the opposite way of Putin and talk about something that's friendly. Segue. I sat down alongside Simon to talk to a company we met at Naidex last year called Friendly Shoes. Simon, what are Friendly Shoes?
Friendly Shoes are an adaptive shoe company, and we sat down with Jessica from Friendly Shoes, and here she is.
Thank you, us from previous video, for throwing over to this. I am still your glorious host, Adam Pearson, who has often been described as friendly. Speaking of friendly, segue, we are joined by Jess from Friendly Shoes. Jess, how are you doing?
Hello, yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
What is Friendly Shoes?
Friendly Shoes essentially are adaptive shoes that look great. If anyone has struggled to find shoes that fit for a number of reasons, it might be that they wear an AFO, they've got wide feet, they lack the hand dexterity to be able to do their laces up, but they want a bit more support than a slip-on, for example, might provide, then we're here for you. Our colours are super stylish. We're not just about function as well. We really want to offer choice to people. We launched last September, actually, at Naidex. My mum has always struggled with this, so I've spent years sort of traipsing around shoe shops with her trying to find shoes. And I have also got arthritis in one foot, so a lot of shoes aren't suitable for me. It's actually a company that was started by an occupational therapist in America. What they stood for really rang true, and I had to tell my physiotherapist friend Nancy Farmer. She, obviously, given her role, is all about improving mobility and independence. And so we decided to bring the shoes over to the UK because we were really shocked at the lack of adaptive footwear options here. So there are no more crazy customs taxes or just, not being able to find shoes that fit, because adaptive footwear is here.
I am actually a Friendly Shoes customer.
Yeah.
The reason Jessica is on this show is because we met at Naidex. And I got these, which are really nice. Jessica can probably explain this a lot easier. It opens up at the back and my foot slips in. Now, I've got something called a drop foot, so I can't move my foot and I've got no sensation. So having the back open, these actually open up and my foot just slides in. These are actually a lot sturdier. There are other shoe manufacturers out there, but I've never brought them because they are ugly. Where these I can actually wear with a black suit and a black tie event.
We want to make people proud of the shoes that they're wearing as well. Accessible footwear doesn't just have to be about functionality. So the shoes that you just showed there, they were the mid-top excursion. Got a really good support on the heel collar and they open round the back. We've also got two other styles that open down the side. So the zip, essentially, you open it up, and if anyone's watching the video and not just listening to the podcast, you can literally slide your foot right in. You can see all the way to the end, and that's really, we call it easy shoe access. That's what our USP is.
What sizes do they come in? Because the shoe Simon just held up is a size 14. You could use it to sail to France.
So we go from the kids, which is a K10, and then our adult shoes, the women's go from a size 3 to an 8, and the men's go from an 8 to a 13.
Adam, thank you for pointing out my shoe size. You know what they say with men in big shoes?
Sorry, because I just said, no, you're not. You're a 13, not a 14. I'm never going to be invited back on.
It took 3.5 minutes, Simon, for you to bring the tone to the level where I can function. Thank you. So, Jess, what's the dream for Friendly Shoes?
We want to keep offering choice. So we've just launched some new kid styles. This summer, we've also got some really great new adult colours coming out, which is really exciting. And the dream is really just to keep going. And the feedback has just been absolutely fantastic. Like, it's just really getting to meet people on those first 2 days of being in business at Naidex was fantastic. Getting people to try them on, see firsthand and hear what they thought about them. And we're going to be there again in July. We want to keep making shoes as accessible as possible. And the way that we do that is also by getting feedback from people.
Where can we find you online?
You can go to www.friendlyshoes.co.uk. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, which is @FriendlyShoesUK. And also, we love to hear from you guys. So drop us a line at hello@friendlyshoes.co.uk.
Now, our audience are lovely, but they're also a little bit cheap. Is there a promo code they can use to get some friendly discount from Friendly Shoes?
There is, yes. So they can use Grumpy15 to get 15% off. And our shoes are also eligible for VAT exemption.
There we go. Friendly Shoes. As we said, they're going to be at Naidex this year. So come say hey to them. Come say hi to us. And Jess, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Now, I like Jessica. If she worked for me, I wouldn't fire her. Speaking of fired, segue, Duncan, The Apprentice.
Yeah, I don't know. I like watching The Apprentice. As I said before, it makes me feel talented when you see all these people messing up in the way that they do. It's just one of those things that if you've ever seen the Mitchell and Webb piss take of The Apprentice, it is spot on. Go Google it, Mitchell and Webb, The Apprentice. Funniest thing you'll ever watch. But A few weeks ago, one of the candidates, Sharma Amin, and she was of the candidates in this year's set. She was the one I was thinking she's going to make it. She's the one who's going to get through this, because she actually seemed to be really present and using her head in a way that everyone else doesn't. But she pulled out, and she pulled out because she has rheumatoid arthritis. And it really got me thinking. It really got me sort of, doing this podcast and what we talk about. But the fact that a physical disability that she has prevented her from competing, I think is a real issue. And I wanted to open up to you guys to hear your thoughts on it.
I'm probably the only person here who has actually auditioned for The Apprentice. And this does not surprise me at all, because when I turned up, I went to Birmingham for the interview, and I couldn't get into the photo booth to take a photo of myself. So they turned me away. And I literally said, I've been down to the photo shop, and I can't transfer into the photo booth. I haven't got my crutches with me, okay? And they wouldn't accept it, okay? So me and Kate, my wife who was with me, we had to search for like 20 places to find someone who would take a headshot of me against a wall and print it off. So that was the first thing that happened. And then once we went to this big room and said, no talking, you're not allowed to talk to anyone, you got literally 20 seconds with all these other people standing next to you to pitch your business idea. And out of not only the 20 people I was in the room with, but also there must have been a couple of hundred in this room, I was the only one in a wheelchair. And people came up to me and said, Simon, that is the best idea in the room. The Apprentice were not interested at all. From my point of view, they were interested in people who were flamboyant, people who were crazy, people who were completely out there, because it's an entertainment show rather than trying to find the best business show.
So you were too boring for The Apprentice.
That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. Maybe,
this guy will make us millions, but he's too boring.
Maybe, Simon, if you were a bit smarter, they'd have taken you 1 mile.
Yeah.
Drop down to number 5.
I agree with what Simon says. It has become an entertainment show as opposed to who actually has the best idea or who is the best business person in the process.
Yeah.
And to give people an idea, if you haven't watched The Apprentice, when Duncan says that there are sort of colossal backups, he's not lying. He's not exaggerating. Let me give you a list of things that people on this show have done in a bid to make money and impress Lord Sugar. One person went to IKEA and bought cheese wholesale to sell in France. He might as well have taken coal to Newcastle. Another one, they were making a pizza to sell at the South Bank Food Festival. They ordered 100 chickens to make 100 chicken tikka pizzas. One chicken.
That's going to be a hell of a pizza.
Another one, design a kid's toy. They had a brainstorm. One of them was a robot you put together yourself and saw other robots, like a Lego Robot Wars kind of thing. And then the project manager said, oh, I've got this idea where kids can communicate from a long way away by waving fucking flags in the air. I'm going to push this idea through because I reckon they'll like it more. They took both to a focus group. Every kid said, the robot's amazing, the flags are bullshit. They went with the flags. He went that week. No doubt about it. One guy tried to make a brand of dog food one type of dog food for every single dog. Every single dog. Oh yeah, let's see the Chihuahua and the St. Bernard the same fucking diet. That'll end well, said no one ever. Well, this is the show that Simon didn't get in.
I actually worked with a guy who got through to the final round of The Apprentice before the final 12 are picked, or wherever it is now that they do. And it was really interesting. He was an absolute prick of a man. He would have been perfect for it because he's just that kind of backstabbing, will say anything to get ahead kind of guy. But he was saying one of the things they did was that they kept them up at ridiculous hours. They'd wake them and they'd get them up really early. The whole purpose was to keep them completely disoriented as far as they could be, so that the decisions they were making weren't rational. It was on 2 hours sleep after having done a whole bunch of stuff and having to make these random decisions, because it makes them that much more entertaining on the show. The show is an absolute sham, start to finish. But I think it brings it back to this thing of, why is a person who is struggling with a physical disability forced out? And what really got me was that there was no big huff about it. It was like, geez, that sucks for her, didn't it? On the next episode.
Yeah. They just went, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Lady whose name I've already forgotten.
I mean, don't they all share a property together anyway?
They do.
I couldn't be on the show and live in that same house because it's not accessible. So therefore, I'm going to have separate accommodation. So therefore, the show wouldn't work for me because I can't join the others in that house.
And you were boring.
So
but it's this thing of what's really going on. She was clearly the best candidate up to that. Everyone was saying how good she was. She was the bookie's favourite to win. And yet, because she's got a physical disability, it prevents her from continuing on. So how is that good business? I was talking to a guy called Daniel Moore on my PDA Dad channel, and he was saying that you've got this, a lot of businesses, especially in the tech industry, they're actually seeking out autistic people now because they know they're that much better at the job than neurotypical people. She had the best presence. She was clearly very intelligent. She was thought through. She was making rational decisions. But because she's got a disability, rheumatoid arthritis, she can't continue. Why is that acceptable?
It's a weird one. And often TV production isn't geared up for disability. Because schedules are tight, windows are tight, and no one really thinks about it because there are no voices of influence in the process going, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
A while ago, the BBC did a disability inclusion thing with like all disabled talent both off screen and on screen. And even the platform they used it on and the way they set it up wasn't accessible. It was on like LinkedIn, and it was just like one massive 4-hour thing with no breaks. And I'm like, who the fuck's all of this?
Yeah.
I was spoiled it, Tim Davey and June Pong. And it's like they never really thought about it. And then I point out that it's bullshit and I'm the bad guy.
I mean, TV is not old in doing this. I mean, I remember, I think it was like year 2000, I'm not 100% sure on that. And Tammy Gray-Thompson came third in Sports Personality of the Year. And she went up to collect the award and they hadn't put a ramp on the stage. So Gary Lineker had to go and hand her award down to her on the floor because she couldn't get on the stage.
It's sad that this is the BBC, which is supposed to be representative, who is supposed to be the benchmark for inclusivity, and yet here we are. And I just think it's sad, and I think it's holding a mirror up to society at a larger level. That's pretty much what about it. I think.
We're thinking BBC as one big entity, but there's so many different people that work for the BBC who have different levels of how they look at disability. So it's a little bit difficult to judge, because you might have one person that's fully involved in the disability community and cares, and then you got somebody who, I don't know, question a sport or something ridiculous, who doesn't know a great deal about it. That's an example. I'm not saying question the sport or ableist or anything, but you've got different people in different places.
Yeah. Quick point on the Apprentice. You know when they call them at like dumbass o'clock in the morning, and like one of the lads comes down, and the lady goes, "Lord, should we like to see you at Sansome at 4? You know, the cars will be there in half an hour." Why don't they just go up to the girls' room and go, "Don't worry, wrong number," and then just go to the boys' room and be like, "We gotta go." we have another interview coming up. Oh, yes, we do. We sat down with the lovely people. I've not met them. I've been told they're lovely. At Able Magazine to have a good old chinwag. Is that not right, Chris Leasmith?
Yes, we did. We sat down with the lovely Tom Jamison, me and Duncan, and they are great people. And here it is.
Thanks, Adam. And as Adam said, we are here with Tom Jamison, who is the editor of Able Magazine. Welcome, Tom. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to throw a curveball because in a previous conversation, you asked what one of our ridiculous questions was.
Ooh, that is low, man.
You seemed excited about playing along until you found out that you weren't. So I'm going to give you one question.
Yeah.
And it's one that we've asked. I can't remember if it was last week or in this week's episode, but I'll ask anyway. What's something you dislike but feel bad about it?
Off the top of my head, I really hate the TV shows that my kids watch.
What do you feel
just
bad
don't make
about
any
that?
sense. Have you ever tried to watch Power Rangers?
Yeah.
Oh, darn.
Have you ever tried to watch Pokemon?
Yeah. But I don't feel bad for hating them.
I do. Well, I feel bad. About 25% of the time, I will just sit down in a grump and just say, look, I just can't watch this, boys. Let's crush them, because that's their whole, I mean, they've got Pokemon stickers and toys and it's the whole kind of mini culture.
It's from birth. It's the I remember having to sit down and watch In the Night Garden.
Yeah.
I tell you, there's going to be a generation of drug-addled kids purely based on trying to understand In the Night Garden.
I don't feel bad for it. Half of my social media is moaning about kids' TV programs and music. I don't understand it.
The other sort of portion that goes with that it's not just kids programs. Honestly, I've seen every single episode of Top Gear maybe 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
And it was good the first time, all right, fair enough. But and then there's sort of a car program on one of the more backwater stations, Yanni's car customizing. Basically,
with that show, I watched that quite excited. And then
do you? It's a bit formulaic. Yanni gets a car in. It's a really nice car. He gets a bit of wallpaper out, and then he lets the garage door up. Yeah, mega. Come on!
How is this show?
Rubbish. The upside of that is that I am actually something of a hero in passing in my kids' eyes, because I have met Yanni. And it was the one time I thought, right, I want to get a selfie of this. See how you like those apples? Click. Me and Yanni, come on.
What would have been great is if we're in a wallpaper shop.
yeah.
Right, let's crack on with the interview. The first question we'd like to ask you, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Can you tell us a little bit about Able Magazine?
Yes, I can. I've revised heavily on this subject over the years. Able Magazine is disability lifestyle publication. It's been around for 25 years, and it's about what disabled people can do, not what they can't. So it's written from a positive perspective, framework, paradigm, whatever you want to call it. And literally, it's about answers and solutions for people experiencing living with disability. So that might be, okay, I want to get back to work. How do I do it? Well, here's how. I want to take a holiday. I'm nervous. Well, what do you do? Well, here's how. And so on and so on. So that's effectively the mission statement.
That's brilliant. Because people probably don't realise watching this, just seeing you, but you're disabled yourself. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, I am. I mean, it's a bizarre series of coincidences that I happen to be sat here at all. In as much as when I joined the company that produces Able Magazine, I didn't really consider myself disabled, and yet I just had a diagnosis of cystic fibrosis when I was about 33. Weirdly enough, I'd been tested when I was 15 and it had come back negative. And then, of course, without going too scientific on you, we had the Human Genome Project, and that created more questions, because in genetic medicine, you need to ask specific, almost yes-no questions. So the questions that my doctor asked me, you sort of 1985 or whatever, 1990, were, does Tom have Delta 567 gene? Well, the answer was no. But when they asked, does in 15, almost 20 years later, does Tom have Delta F158, I think is the one, the answer was yes. So I did have cystic fibrosis, even though it had actually been tested for and discounted. So it was a bit of a shock, because not least because for all those years, I'd been growing up with my parents literally telling me, there's nothing wrong with you. You've been tested. You're fine. Walk it off. Come on, come on, and it wasn't their fault, and it was the time, as well. I grew up in the 70s, 80s, and it was the time when you did that, so it was a bit strange. But getting back to sort of me as a disabled person in Able, it was really odd, because I started actually on the commercial sales side of the business, and I started to put, figuratively speaking, writing that I'd done under the editor's door, so to speak, and he started to really like the stuff I was producing, and it got to the crunch whereby he was paying me a bit on the side as well, and it basically boiled down to, well, look, you're kind of doing two jobs for us. Which one do you want? And I thought, well, I'll have that one in the editorial department, please, which was great. But the weird thing was that I kind of grew up in a way, if you consider, and I think a lot of disabled people do, they'll maybe have their accident day as their second birthday, if you gather my meaning. Yeah. So I've just been reading Sophie Morgan's book, actually. TV presenter, she uses a wheelchair, she's quite well known. She was 18 years old when she had her accident that caused her disability, caused her paralysis, and she became a wheelchair user. She regards that as her second birthday. So I in the same sense, although my second birthday was kind of gradual, I was starting at a scratch position as a disabled person, but at Able Magazine. So how lucky was I? Because I learned so much, regarding how to do it. I mean, talking about answers and solutions, why am I feeling so tired? Well, here's how, and here's why, and here's what you can do about it. That kind of idea. Why do I ache so much? Why am I in this pain? Well, actually, here's how, and here's what you can do about it. Those answers and solutions became very, very personal, as unfortunately my situation deteriorated.
What has a gradual transition to becoming a disabled person taught you?
Well, without trying to make myself too heroic or anything like that, or goodness knows, not inspirational. I'm genuinely not, I promise you.
That should be an epitaph on a gravestone.
Yeah, exactly. But although I was thinking more along the lines of "please keep off the grass," or "Mum and Dad, I told you I was ill," or those kind of classics. But still, no, it was a series of surprises. What I could do that I just hadn't realised that I could do. For instance, I'm a terrible trypanophobe, and I hope you've got your dictionaries with you, and you can confirm that means a fear of needles.
Yeah, I knew that. Yep.
Although it's not my favourite phobia word. My favourite word, phobia word, is actually tri-sky-decaphobia. I don't have tri-sky-decaphobia, but it actually means fear of number 13. Pop fans.
I should have known that.
Yeah.
I've heard that before. I have.
I was thinking it was going to be like the fear of Tatooine or something, but that's 2 suns, isn't it? Not 3.
Yeah. You see, that's for your ridiculous question,
Yes. That's a very good one, yeah.
Have you ever played Balderdash?
That's the thing. I can't. I just can't. Quizzes, board games, cards, it just brings out the worst in me.
We had one on there that was tacker shit, and the best definition someone came up with, which I'll always remember, was an unusual substitute for pin the tail of the donkey.
The point is that, of course, there was a lot more of that sort of medical handling, which I'm not good at. I don't like being prodded and poked and what have you. Not least because I'd had a lot of accidents when I was a kid that put me into A&E. I mean, honestly, I've had more injuries than Evel Knievel, just all the time. I've split my head open loads of times. I've broken toes and cut my face open, all of it. And I've been held down and stitched up, and that's not good when you're a kid. So I've always had a fear of it. But, this came to a dramatic kind of peak when I actually have a what's known as a PEG, and that stands for percutaneous endoscopic gastrostomy, which is what we call in parlance popular. It's a feeding tube, because as somebody with progressive CF, I just wasn't pulling in the nutrients from my food, and I was actually experiencing low-level malnutrition, and I literally couldn't eat enough food, not least because I don't have a tremendous appetite. but I couldn't eat enough food to sustain myself properly. So I have to have support with that. So I actually feed overnight via a pump. But anyway, unfortunately, because of my lack of bulk and because of the chest symptoms that I have as somebody with CF, the operation is quite a wild time. It doesn't take very long, but unfortunately, you don't get the whole knockout anesthetic. They give you a sedative, and without getting too graphic, so you're awake, and one of the people puts a camera down your throat to guide the surgeon, who is just literally pushing a hole into your stomach from the outside. So that was interesting for somebody who's not into that kind of ER stuff at all. It was pretty brutal. I mean, I can still, weirdly, the sedative means that you can't remember the operation, but I can remember the start of it, and I can, in my mind's ear, I can hear the sound of the cut, and I can hear the camera rattling down my neck. It's messed up big time. Yeah, it was.
Wow.
But that was from a scratch start. You know, I wasn't used to this stuff. I thought people got put in hospital, you know, when a piano fell out of a first floor building on top of them, or you got run over, or
That's all the
something
morgue.
like that.
That's not the hospital.
Well, depends what kind of size the piano is, but
Yeah.
you know. But even so, it just seems accumulating quite an enormous mountain to sort of climb for me. But there you are.
With all that in mind, I mean, how does that play? I mean, how does that inform your experience, your disability, with how you've crossed over into your career?
It really has. Like I say, I learned a lot. My job taught me a lot about being disabled, but being disabled taught me a lot about my job and what people really want to know. I'll give you, for instance, you know, when you go through Able Magazine and you look at the different features, you very rarely talk about, let's say, cystic fibrosis or another specific condition or illness, because I find that, particularly my own experience in mind, I can't help thinking that just suppose you've got CF, what on earth am I going to tell you about CF that you don't already know? Right? So what's the point? Equally, if you don't have CF, I don't have that. You're turning the page over, and these things are important in publishing. You know, every page has got to work for as many people as possible at an optimum rate. So instead of that, I would tend to write about umbrella topics in some way, perhaps with a hook from, let's say, leisure or sports or vacations or work and stuff like that. But it'd be about sleep, energy, pain, even something more direct, spasms, stuff like that, rather than honing it in to you know, trying to make it more accessible to as many people as possible. And that's the real challenge, I suppose, writing Able, because it's like a language. And honestly, there is no wise old man at the top of the mountain that knows everything. There just isn't, because you'll know yourselves, lads. Tomorrow you'll be speaking with a totally different disabled person who doesn't have a peg, but could be an amputee, might have an intellectual disability, might have a sensory disability, might have another X, Y, and Z physical disability. It's vast. That's the challenge of writing Able, because we're trying to write for disabled people, but it's incredibly difficult to figure out what's a disabled person and what does they look like in you know, these times. It's really odd.
It's beautiful the way that works, and I think you know, we said on the Grumpy Gits a lot, you kind of need that input from the actual disabled community to make it valid. We say it's like we got the health minister who hasn't spent a day in his life experiencing what disabled people experience. You need to spend a week in a wheelchair and actually understand what it's like getting around London in it, and you bring that experience to the editorial side of Able Magazine, which I think is brilliant. Tom, I want to thank you so much for joining. This has been a fascinating insight into what it's like in the world of print media, and I want to really genuinely thank you so much for joining us.
Not at all. No, it's a great pleasure. Thank you very, very much for having me. You know, and I'll see you boys at Naidex, I suppose.
Yes.
Will. Absolutely. We'll all be back, and hopefully we can do another panel together or something
Excellent.
like that.
Done there.
So, check out Naidex Show at Naidex Show on Twitter, and you can go to naidex.com and you'll see all the information, register to go. We'll hand back to Adam and ourselves, obviously, back in the main podcast.
And we are now on to our final segment, What Happens Next? Simon wants to go to bed, so the first clip is going to be the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League, because, like you, Simon, like you. That's a joke, by the way. That isn't what the clip is. Chris Leasmith, take it away, my man. Let's see what you've got.
So, first clip.
Well,
What
good
happens
Lord.
next?
Oh, he's going to punch him in the bollocks.
You think he's going to punch him in the balls? Okay. Duncan, what do you think?
I think it's going to segue into a very convenient OnlyFans segment.
Okay, Adam, what do you think?
I think one of them has explosive diarrhea.
Explosive diarrhea. These are some good answers this week. Okay, let's find out.
Oh, okay. He's got his shirt dress. He's hung himself. He's hung himself. Oh, dear. Yeah, none of us got that right.
He as he was spinning around, he got his t-shirt trapped. So, okay. So next clip. Okay, what happens next?
I think he's going to face plant in the middle, isn't he?
You think he's going to face plant? Okay, Duncan.
Yeah.
I think he's going to do like a flip and then land on his face. So not quite the face plant that Simon's talking about. I think it's going to be some kind of dramatic flip, and then it's...
Okay, Adam, is he going to shit himself again, or what's he going to happen?
I think he nails it. I think he just absolutely. I think he does a flip. He lands it. The crowd goes wild, and he gets an Olympic gold medal.
I don't think there's much of a crowd in the park, but let's find out.
Oh,
yeah, he took a shot. I didn't realise it was blurred, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's blood or what, but yeah, it looked like it hurt. So
it really looked like it hurt.
Really did.
Crikey, he should get a medal.
Has he plucked his banjo on that one?
Okay, third clip. What happens next?
Well, clearly he's fed her the egg, or he's going to feed her the egg, and then she's going to wake up choking on an egg.
Okay. Right. Okay, Duncan?
I think the egg's going to flip up and somehow miraculously land directly in her mouth. Perfectly, and yeah.
Okay, Adam?
I reckon she's definitely allergic to eggs, and we're looking at a snuff movie.
Oh my God. Okay, let's find out.
Oh, I was pretty close.
It was very, very close. Yeah, so he basically put it in her mouth straight after. So let's go to clip 4. What happens next?
I'm going with OnlyFans once again.
Well, clearly her trousers are going to split, or she's going to do a huge fart.
Adam?
I reckon she does some kind of funky handstand thing, and he goes up and does a handstand as well. It's going to be glorious. No matter what happens, humanity wins.
Okay. Let's find out. Now, I just that was obviously Simon was right, but just we're going to watch that clip again, but take a look at the reaction of the girls when it happens. That must have had some volume to do something like that.
I don't know why I knew the answer to that one.
Because you've done it.
That's very similar exercises I do to get the farters out because I can't fart naturally.
And coming up on the next episode of Too Much Information from Simon Sansome.
That's the worst thing I've actually seen in those poses. So
Yeah, it's not great. Like playing really sweaty bagpipes. And on that wonderful note, you stay classy, Sandy. Here you go. You stay classy. We bid you adieu from another episode of the Grumpy Gits. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Got something you want to talk about? Get in touch. Want to give us money? Absolutely get in touch, unless you're Russian, and we'll gladly work with you. So from me, Adam Pearson, from him, Simon Sampson, from him, Duncan Casburn, and from him, Chris Leasmith, we'll see you in the next one. Adios.
The Grumpy Gits are proudly partnered with Naidex, Europe's largest disability conference.